I'm Andrew Byrne, Breed Development and Extension Manager at Angus Australia, and today I'm pleased to provide some details regarding the new selection indexes which will be implemented into the TransTasman Angus Cattle Evaluation. So the new indexes will be introduced in the upcoming December evaluation and will involve the implementation of 10 new selection indexes which will be now published routinely on Angus cattle. The new indexes continue to be economic selection indexes, which reflect differences in the profitability that result from differences in the animal's genetics, with each of the new selection indexes being specific to different production systems, target market endpoints and breeding systems. And the reason for introducing such a wide range of indexes, so moving from the 4 to 5 different selection indexes which have traditionally been published on Angus cattle out to a greater range of 10 selection indexes, is really in a bid to better cater for the diversity in the kind of production system and market endpoints in which Angus cattle are now used. So within the 10 different selection indexes, we now have different selection indexes for different production systems. So while traditionally people will be used to having different selection indexes for different market endpoints, we now also have different selection indexes reflecting differences in the production system in which the Angus cattle are being run. So in particular, we still maintain but now have an updated version of the Angus Breeding Index, Domestic Index, Heavy Grain and Heavy Grass selection indexes. But we now also have a low feed cost version of all those 4 indexes. And that low feed cost version is designed to cater for those Angus operations who are running their cattle in a system where the cost of providing feed is relatively low. So in particular where there might be pasture that is not fully utilised for a big portion of the year, and so if animal feed requirements increase, then there's not much additional cost associated with that, as we already have surplus feed. Or alternatively, where there isn't much surplus feed, but where the cost of supplying additional feed, so either via supplementary feeding or through increased pasture production, is not very high, so it's a low feed cost type production system. So if we increase our animal feed requirements, so for instance if we increase our mature cow weight and therefore the maintenance requirement of our female breeding herd, then the economic cost of that is quite low. And so those low feed cost versions do not include any objective to try and constrain any increase in mature cow weight, whereas the standard kind of indexes do include that objective of trying just to maintain mature cow weight as we increase our production for the other traits. So in addition now to having different selection indexes for different production systems, we also see the reintroduction of a terminal sire index, so designed to cater for situations where Angus bulls are being used as a terminal sire and all the progeny, both female and male, are being slaughtered. And we also see the introduction of an Angus Pro Index, which is an index specific for breeding systems in New Zealand production systems. So particularly, I guess, to cater for the marketing, or to assist with the marketing of Australian Angus genetics into New Zealand, but also to cater for the number of Angus breeders who are now based in New Zealand who now record with Angus Australia. In addition to having 10 new indexes, there will also be some changes made to the manner in which indexes are presented. So with a big range of those indexes, there'll now only be 2 of those indexes which will be included in the standard EBV displays. So the Angus Breeding Index, or the $A Index, and also the Angus Breeding Low Feed Cost Index, or the $AL Index. Both of those indexes will be maintained in the standard EBV displays, whereas the other 8 indexes will just be made available for those that may wish to use them via the Angus Australia website, via the Angus Tech kind of database search system. Importantly, breeders will now have greater flexibility as well as to whether they include selection indexes in their marketing materials. So they'll be standard through Angus Australia's sale catalogue services. There'll be default layouts that both do and do not include selection indexes. And for those members that do wish to go forth and continue to present selection indexes on their animals, there'll be default kind of layouts that include both the $A or the Angus Breeding Index, or the $AL being the Angus Breeding Low Feed Cost Index in the standard. And hopefully they are sufficient in most cases, but then breeders would also be encouraged to include in their sale catalogues and other marketing materials any other indexes which they deem to be of particular relevance to their members. So how do the new indexes differ from the current indexes, or the indexes that have previously been produced? While generally there's a high degree of similarity in the way that animals rank, there will be some re-ranking of those indexes. So some animals that were high may not rank as highly, and vice versa, those that didn't rank as highly may now come up towards the top of the list. Importantly, most notably, the actual magnitude of the index values, so the breed average, if you like, is now a lot higher than what it was. And there's also greater differences in the indexes that we have for different animals, so far greater spread in the index values. And there's also a far greater difference between the values that we see for the different individual indexes. So if we look, say, for the breed average across the different indexes, there's now far more variation in those than what we might have been used to before. So just to touch briefly on why the new indexes have been introduced. So the current selection indexes, which have been calculated, have been in the operation since December 2014. So they've been around for 7 years now. And it's really important that we make updates to those selection indexes to maintain their relevance to current kind of production systems. And by comparison to the current selection indexes, there are a couple of major differences. First of all, the new selection indexes are now calculated using an upgraded version of software. So we calculate the selection indexes in the TransTasman analysis using a bit of software called Breed Object. There's now a greatly upgraded version of that software, which does a far better job of modelling differences in feed costs. Also, the new selection indexes now also incorporate updated kind of economic and production parameters, so updated from the ones that we used in 2014 to be reflective of the current beef market. An important thing also to note about the development of the new selection indexes is that there has been a extensive industry consultation process that many of you may have been involved in, and also, if not, would be aware of. So the industry consultation, which was facilitated in the development of these new indexes, kind of commenced in March and April this year with an online survey and a series of 6 member focus groups. We got really great engagement through that, and that gave a lot of feedback to Angus Australia on the kind of what people thought of the indexes which we publish in the TransTasman Angus Cattle Evaluation and what they'd like to see. That then went through and enabled us to develop a series of research selection indexes, which were released for industry review and consultation in August. And then during October, there was another round of consultation to get feedback on those research indexes via, again, yet another online survey, but then also a series of 4 member focus groups. And based on that feedback, we also then went through and made further changes, and that has resulted in the indexes which are being published in the December analysis. And I really just want to take this opportunity to thank all the Angus Australia members and also Angus breeders who got involved in that consultation and provided the feedback, and we're really pleased with how we've come out with those indexes, which hopefully cater for the needs of the different Angus Australia members. For further information on the new indexes, there are a number of different resources which have been developed. So there's a new module available within the Angus Education Centre, and I really encourage all Angus breeders to go and have a look at that information. It provides lots of information around just how the selection indexes are calculated, but also regarding each of the selection indexes, things like the emphasis which is placed on each EBV, the selection advantage, so the kind of response to selection which we'll see across each of those indexes, along with a range of other information. There's also, with the increase in the number of indexes, there's now been a new kind of decision support tool that's available through that education centre, so the index selector, which guides breeders through range of different questions to assist them identify the index which is likely to be relevant to their breeding program. And of course, if any information, any other questions and things that you might not be able to garner from those different resources, then please feel free to give staff at Angus Australia a call. Thank you.